So it's a fairly well-known fact that Socrates never took any money for teaching, and despite any virtuous motive that might be behind why he did that, when asked why he did it, it was because he never wanted to be with an intractable learner, that is, someone who was merely willing to pay for an education, but not really interested in doing all that would be involved in getting one. I think his attitude is a very fun one to think about, and it's probably very relevant to people as they think about going to school right now. Are you willing to pay for an education, or are you willing to do what's required to get an education? That's such an important distinction. I think the problem, too, is that if we accept payment for the teaching, then we're caught in this position of the customer always being right. But it may well be that education is more of, as Dr. Peterson has already suggested, it's like a gym membership where you pay to get access to resources whereby you can diligently cultivate yourself, but the institution doesn't really do anything for you. It's not as if paying is the essential part of getting a degree. I think in our consumer capitalist society where people think of selecting a major as if they're somehow, purchasing something. A degree is not an object that you purchase. Even though the times of Socrates and the times today are very, very different, there was something very right-minded in his concern there. I think students, you will have to pay for it, but paying for it doesn't alleviate you from the obligations of being the kind of student who's going to actively engage in what needs to be engaged in order to actually get the education that you're after. Don't succumb to that belief that paying somehow is the sufficient task. Unfortunately, in today's society, at least as we have it now, people do pay for an education. As more and more ideas become online and as more and more people get access to books through libraries and interlibrary loan, and there's more of a network sharing, I think there may be a new role for university. University will increasingly become perhaps places of very disciplined higher learning, learning that is with people willing to at least entertain basic assumptions together in order to grow knowledge a little bit. It's not all sort of haggle over basic beginner terms the way you almost have to do it when everything is anonymous. So I think the more anonymity we have to deal with, the more that it seems as if everything has to be Intro 101 because you're not really sharing the knowledge base of other people. But that also makes it seem as if ideas are fashions or things to be purchased or worn. We need to really challenge how consumer capitalism and the ideas of money and monetary value have infiltrated our thinking about what education and what learning is. It may be nice to go to a really fancy school, in fact a school that is very expensive. One of the people who is my great heroes is Kenneth Burke. Kenneth Burke did one semester of college. He was a highly self-educated man, and I think he sort of exemplified how the ability to read and write and think and to engage with others is the capacity, but none of that, it's only in the modern world that has that anything to do with the paying and the buying and selling of things, right? Ultimately, learning is about growing. It's just that university, you pay to get access, not only to the institutional resources, to all of the programs that are there, and to the arguably people who've been paid a lot of money from around the country to be brought in there and to share their ideas with people, but you get to be in a community of like-minded learners who are committed to the idea of ongoing inquiry and expression, and that these themselves are a beautiful aspect of life. You're not trying to buy an education to get an ultimate product. The product is in the ability to think, the ability to create, the ability to express oneself. It's all of these capacities that come from a well-educated mind, but none of them is a product. If anything, education is hopefully something that works for a person to an extent that gets them a job, but it shouldn't be so specifically for a job that they become displaced as the job market changes and as new technologies displace certain jobs. You want a person who's able to think and grow and be a learner rather than someone who is just learned. Right? This is Eric Hoffer's great line where he says, in times of great change, it is the learners who will inherit the world, while the learned inherit a world that increasingly no longer exists.